You know, a national budget isn't just a bunch of numbers on a spreadsheet. It's a story. It tells you exactly what a country cares about. But when you start digging into the fine print of this particular budget, the story gets, well, a little weird. It starts to feel less like a plan and more like a mystery. And today, we're gonna solve it.
So what's the connection? I mean, a fancy building, forests that aren't there, and secret codes. Well, it turns out they're all key pieces of evidence in a massive parliamentary debate over how a country is spending its money. And these aren't just random details. Critics say they're clues pointing to a much bigger problem of waste, secrecy, and just really questionable priorities.
So here's our game plan. First, we're going to follow the money and look at some of those questionable priorities. Then we'll investigate projects where huge sums were spent, but the results just kind of disappeared. We'll dive into the big problem with secrecy and then explore a pretty wild idea for a new model for government. And finally, we'll wrap it all up and talk about why all of this scrutiny really matters.
All right, let's start with the most basic question you can ask about any budget. Where is the money actually going? For the critics in Parliament, a few things really jumped off the page as examples of, let's just say, very generous spending. Get a load of this number, 3.8 times billion Thai baht. That was the price tag for a brand new Ministry of Transport building. A number so huge it basically forced lawmakers to stand up and ask, wait a minute, what on earth could possibly cost that much? Well, if you look at the blueprints, you start to get an idea. This thing was designed less like a government office and more like a five-star corporate headquarters. We're talking a helipad, a private VIP elevator, a full-on fitness center, and even a massive auditorium for TED Talk-style speeches. The works. And just to give you a sense of the scale here, the new building would give every single employee 124 square meters of space. That is nearly 6 times what they have now. So critics were asking, is this really necessary, or is it just a little bit over the top? And this is where it gets really interesting. It's what's called opportunity cost. What else could you do with that money? Critics pointed out that by just scaling back the project a bit, the savings, 2.6 billion baht, could have gone to support 2.6 million rai of farmland. A rai is a Thai unit of area, so we're talking about helping out farmers on nearly 1 million acres of land. It's a pretty stark choice.
And the scrutiny didn't just stop with the building itself. It went all the way down to the furniture. Check this out. 202,000 baht. That was the line item for a single table for the library. The price was so insane, one critic sarcastically asked if it was carved out of volcanic rock from Mount Fuji.
The military budget got hit with similar questions. Critics flagged a whole list of luxury items for officials stationed abroad. We're talking a brand new Mercedes, fancy home theater systems, and my personal favorite, budget requests for an iPhone 16 and a Galaxy S25, phones that hadn't even been released yet.
But, as the critics pointed out, spending a ton of money on fancy stuff is only one side of the coin. The other side is when you spend huge amounts of money and get seemingly nothing to show for it. Let's look at a couple of key examples.
Here's a real head-scratcher. Over the last decade, more than 10 billion baht was spent on reforestation projects. So you'd expect to see more forests, right? Well, according to the government's own data, the total forest area in the country has actually gone down.
So where did all that money go? An official state audit painted a pretty grim picture. In more than half of the projects, less than 50% of the trees even survived. Some saplings were apparently planted in forests that were already healthy, and in other cases, the projects were on land that had allegedly been seized from local villagers. Just a total mess.
Now, this idea of spending without results wasn't just happening out in the forests. Critics also zeroed in on the government's communications during a recent international crisis. See, in any crisis, there's a golden rule called unity of command. It's simple. You need one clear official voice to stop confusion and misinformation from spreading.
But according to critics in Parliament, that principle was thrown right out the window. You had multiple agencies all saying different things at the same time, creating total chaos. As one speaker put it so powerfully, this failure created a vacuum, and that vacuum was instantly filled with rumors and fake news, destroying public trust right when people needed it most.
Okay, this brings us to what might be the most alarming issue raised in these debates. We're moving from just questionable spending to a complete lack of transparency where billions of baht were essentially hidden from the people who were supposed to approve the budget.
It all started when critics found these things buried deep in the Air Force budget. Just 2 lines of text with these cryptic codes accounting for an incredible 4.8 billion baht. The problem? There were absolutely zero details about what this money was actually for. Nothing.
So this raised a really fundamental question, right?
How can a democratic body, a parliament, be expected to sign off on billions of dollars in spending for projects that are a complete secret, with no justification, no explanation, nothing?
Well, after a ton of pressure, the details finally came out. And what were these top secret, must-be-hidden projects? You ready for this? Building fences, buying water trucks, paying for official travel. Critics were furious, arguing these were just routine expenses that were hidden for no good reason at all.
But you know, the debate wasn't just about pointing out all the problems. It was also about looking for solutions. And one of the most creative, kind of out there ideas was a new vision for how a government could work, by thinking of it like a piece of technology.
And the big analogy was a semiconductor. Now, stick with me here. The idea is that you can apply its principles to how a country is run. Your policies should be flexible, like a semiconductor. Your decisions should be fast and transparent, like a transistor switching on and off. The whole government should work together like an integrated circuit, and all of it has to be built on a solid base, like silicon, of good people and reliable data.
So what's the end goal of all this? It's about controlling the flow of public money and resources with the same incredible precision that a computer chip controls the flow of electricity. It's about building a system based on the rule of law that makes sure money goes exactly where it's supposed to go and stops corruption before it can even start.
So, okay, we've gone from luxury buildings and phantom forests to secret codes and high-tech analogies. What's the one thread that connects all of these different stories? It's the simple, fundamental importance of public scrutiny.
At the end of the day, these debates, as heated and dramatic as they get, are about so much more than just the numbers. They're about holding power accountable. They're a demand from the public and the people they elected for a government that spends their money wisely, operates in the open, and answers to the citizens it's supposed to serve.
And that really leaves us with one final thought. Because a national budget isn't just the government's story to tell. It belongs to every single citizen. So the real question isn't just about what's in the budget, but who gets to write the final chapter.